What's up, guys? Steven here today. And today I wanted to talk to you about the two hemispheres. So the creative, the logical mind, and then the fucking magic that occurs when the two synergizes, the magical hemisphere. The hemisphere in between. So, what do I mean by this? We probably all already know that your brain is not actually just, your brain is composed or comprised of two, you can think of it as it's compartmentalized in components. And one component takes care of one component takes care of certain processes, certain activities, thinking, logical reasoning, intuition, vision, creativity, blah, blah, blah. While the rest takes care of the other. Interpretation, mental processes like focus, etc., etc. Emotional intelligence, intelligence itself, like the different talents that you're born with and cultivate throughout your life, etc., etc. Now, the convention is that essentially it's like there's two they use the word hemisphere, which is essentially parts of the brain. Say the brain is this giant fucking circle, and then conventional wisdom has it that you split it right in the middle, and then this hemisphere does only this, and this hemisphere only does that. And I'm here to say, fuck all that, because it's not exactly how it works. What happens is essentially, whenever you go through life, it's like the different experiences that you go through call upon different, you can think about outputs from you. It demands from you different skills. Maybe it demands from you a variety of different personality matrices. Right? Maybe sometimes you have to be gregarious or really upbeat and funny. Sometimes you have to be a little upset. Maybe your team isn't playing as well as they should be, right? You're a player and you're like, come on, bros! But at the same time, to temper it, because negative energy is never, it's as much of a push as it is, it gets you to do shit. Long term, it's actually a detriment because, again, refer back to my previous videos. Anytime you access an emotion or think of it as an energy source, you're creating a pathway to that. And so it's a way of essentially being able to access that emotion or that energy more quickly by your brain. These are what are called neural pathways. And so the more you access an energy, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. And so the strongest neural pathways tends to be the one that you can think of it as your brain, it catches your brain's attention. It's oh, this one is strong, and it must be strong because it is good, so I will access it. That's how it essentially goes through that logic. But what I'm trying to say is these different experiences call upon different parts of yourself. And the thing that we have to realize is these hemispheres, right? They actually both do the same thing, just at different times, and depending on the activity or the experience, different degrees, or it essentially inputs a variety of energy, or it varies in its intensity of input depending on the fucking stimulus or event or experience. That's the perfect way of putting it, right? So that's why you'll see when someone is doing something, you would think, since this hemisphere is a creative hemisphere and this one is a logical, when someone does shit, you would think that only this fucking hemisphere will light up. But what you see on MRI is they all both light up. But now it's just different parts of the fucking hemisphere that light up. And people like to say, oh, because this one is the logical, that's why it's more lit up than that one. No, it is simply because that person, by the way they grew up, by the being, by their fucking DNA, by their fucking spiritual bank, their spiritual wealth, by all a combination of so many what I call life level IQs. Essentially developed that part of the hemisphere to where now that particular event or experience is calling upon it at that particular time. And it's not because that hemisphere only does logical or creative processing. And that was actually my main point. That was my first point in this video. We actually have we have not fully processed what each component of the fucking brain, I'm not talking about mind as in Buddhism, but let's just dive into the physical because this will make sense when I take it a level up. But we have not actively figured out the real like the exact role that each fucking piece of the brain does in every single scenario. This is why fucking brain surgery is so scary, because literally everything is tied into each other, right? And so you might like cut here and then like it actually, because this person, their brain, whatever choices, developed that particular part, and then that part is stored the fucking energy, information, DNA matrix for a personality, a talent, an ability, even how to fucking speak English or French or another language. You might literally fuck them up forever by doing that, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is, so what does this mean then? The key is to be strive to become a fucking well-rounded, balanced individual. And what that means is you have to strive to develop both sides of your fucking brain. You have to strive to develop both the creative and the logical part of your brain, right? A lot of people you'll see most of the time, even, it's kind of funny, but even it's almost like depending on where you go in the world, there's like this emphasis on culture to develop one part more on the other. Certain cultures literally say fuck the environment, and we know what the golden touch is, so we'll do both, right? And it's kind of funny that it tends to be those individuals that succeed the most in any environment. Like, take them a million miles away from home, take them like forever, drop them in the abyss, they'll fucking still like thrive somehow. Not just survive. But it's because those two hemispheres, or those two parts of their brain, their logical side and their creative, are so developed that the synergy between them allows them to literally unlock their own magic. You can think of it that way. Meaning they're able to see the world as a living entity, and they're able to see the multidimensional aspect that is reality. Because of that, they can literally fucking snafu, or like Aladdin's lamp, or fucking Zenziva the fuck out of reality, creating things out of thin air, literally by virtue of being, right? So how do you go about developing that? Well, as I mentioned, and I think it was the How to Rewire Your Brain, it's all about, you have to like literally do different activities. I don't want to sound gay, but like think of the fucking period of the Renaissance, right? Like at the time, it was not only like a spiritual renewal, because people were realizing that there is more to this world, to this reality, than just a physical, right? And because they were striving for spiritual growth, everything trickled down and became better. Knowledge increased in quality. Fucking technology increased in quality, because the spiritual allowed their minds to open their potential and unleash even more awesomeness than what was previously available before in the world. Everything bloomed, even fucking sexuality, right? Like, and that's one of the major things I kind of wanted to touch about. The creative mind is kind of weird because, so I like, the way I define it is like, the creative mind actually deals a lot with your quality of energy. I like to put it that way, in the sense that like, it is the thing through which your ideas become better by virtue of impact. So you have a really good idea and you execute on it, it actually does something fucking epic in the world, right? it's also the thing that allows you to actually build fucking that empathy, compassion, love, and essentially emotional intelligence, in the sense that you're always able to see yourself in others, to see yourself in the plant, to see yourself in the animal, more important, to see yourself in the world, like the planet as it is. It's almost like it is a thing through which we always maintain that spiritual link with the world. And so that's why, like, things like when people, for example, do drugs, right? Or they fucking drink or do all types of shit, they feel like they're coming back in touch with nature, because that part of their brain is more, it's like more activated. I don't want to say more activated, but it's outputting more than usually. And so it's almost, especially if someone is like very logical, like someone is always trying to be transactional in the way they operate, it literally, and because of that, they're literally like swinging their, say like you have a pendulum, right? And here's the sweet spot, the golden touch, or the golden medium, golden mean, whatever you want to call it. And one side is logical and one side is like fucking creative, right? And then like most of the time, people that are super logical, they're like the pendulum is way swinging the other way. And so they tend to be very like frank and stern and like like very short, right? But then like say you get them to drink or drugs, they'll literally fucking swing the other side. And you will see another side of them. They're actually jovial. They fucking laugh. They crack jokes. They're funny. They're like a blessing. Like they're just really good company to be around, right? It's because essentially that swinging of the pendulum has caused them to not only swing, but once they get off or they come down from the drug or the drinking, it actually brings them back to balance on some level. Now, if they continue to live their life in the way that's like fucking not cultivating that creative side of themselves, they'll eventually just swing back to that side, right? But my point is, so the creative is like the controller of that quality of energy. I like to say it's almost like the thing through which potential is poured into, right? And then the logical is the thing that essentially you can think of it as like the thing that filters or dictates how that potential is unleashed, right? So that's one great way of putting it. Now, by understanding these two definitions, you realize that if both of them meet and literally come together, you can literally become a game changer, because the way you unleash your potential will be done in the most effective way to essentially allow your potential to continually be unleashed. It's literally like a loop, like a positive loop, though. R.Z. Tyler has this idea of like upward spirals and downward spirals, and his idea is essentially life is essential. So he talks about dating and pickup, and one of his main philosophies is essentially to always keep yourself in momentum, being social and talking to people, because it's like gaining energy, right? It's like you're always gaining momentum with being social. And so now what happens is when that really attractive girl that you like comes around, it's not hard for you to like just reach across and say hi or talk to her, because you're already in that mood. You already have so much momentum with the act of being social that to your brain, it's not like this fucking huge gear that you have to shift into, right? And I always thought about it in this sense, in a sense that like, it's all about doing everything you can to curate and cultivate that golden or positive, fruitful state of mind, right? And essentially by working on both of these parts of the brain in a way that's fruitful and virtuous to you, you can only do good, right? So I talked about the creative, the logical, define them both. Now, how do you go about cultivating them? Me, for example, one thing, so I mentioned creativity one huge thing, as crass as it is fucking sexuality. Oh my god. You do not know how many people I know would be so much better off if they fucking jacked off or masturbated. Like, there's a reason why it's called release, right? Think of it as like hose, and it's an energy hose, and when you're like always uptight, maybe extremely sexually frustrated, it's like there's a kink in the hose, and so now you can't even properly function. But the worst part is you don't even realize it. Like there's always this low-level hum of like anxiety, frustration, and you just don't know where it's coming from. So me, for example, I'm not ashamed to say I like to give myself a couple wanks, bang girls, simply because I've come to realize, and obviously I don't want to make a generalization like force, have sex, jack off, but I've come to realize that when I'm in a relaxed and good mood, I tend to just do better in life. Like I tend to execute a lot easier on my ideas. I tend to actually be less nervous and like prone to anger and stuff like that, simply because I'm nice and chill. And I don't know about you guys, but I know that my body has certain needs, and one of them is that. And if I don't take care of that, manage it in one way or the other, it tends to like leave me in like this weird, like anxious mood, right? Now I don't want to make a blanket generalization, but that's just an idea that I throw out there, right? So another way of essentially cultivating your creativity is doing things that literally raise the quality of emotions, right? So for me, for example, there's watching funny things. Like I'm mind blown. I'm so fucking mind blown by the amount of people that don't watch comedy or don't watch things that make them laugh. Like you literally have to make yourself laugh. That's literally it. And I'm so mind blown by that because then they come back and tell me, oh, my life sucks. I hate myself. Why do people not think I'm cool or nice? It's like, duh, bro. Like, you're not doing any of the things that would essentially make you become the person to be any of those cool things. It doesn't just magically happen. You have to work on yourself, right? That's why it's called self-development. So, like, comedy, watching comedy, right? Another one is, like, for me, is being in nature. I love, like, I working out. Just got back from my soccer training sesh, and then like earlier this morning I worked out, and then I ran up to the gym, right? All these activities that like force me to be outside, force me to sweat, force me to essentially get in touch with myself, see how I'm doing physically, my strength, all those things. Those are great ways also to raise the quality of your emotions, raise the quality of your energy. And because of that, it's actually working on that creative part of your mind, because it's literally like curing it. It's like clearing the RAM in your fucking computer. And so now the computer's like, haha, oh shit, I'm light again. Let's do fun stuff. So that's one. Those are three simple things. Essentially, the goal is to do things that make you smile, that put a fucking smile on your face. R.C. Tyler calls it cultivating an ecosystem of positive emotions. I've actually mentioned it before in the bone density video. So that's for the creative mind, right? Now for the logical mind, as men, it's already pretty simple because we're very logical already. But you want to know something that's really funny that would actually people don't realize? Fucking reading. Reading a book will cause you to logically think or develop that logical part of your mind, because reading essentially forces you to not only take in information, so you have to take in information appropriately. So you can't fucking skip lines. You actually have to read the whole story. But then once you do that, you also have to like ask yourself, what the fuck does this really mean? Like, we've all been in class sometimes when a teacher is like going through an equation or formula, but then you're like writing it, and then you get home, you're like, what the fuck did I just write? Right? By essentially logically engaging with the emotion, by deeply engaging with the information, you're able to essentially like suck all the juices out of it as possible, and not just taking in at face value, but really dig down and figure out what it means, and then figure out a game plan to implement it and execute upon that information in your life. So reading is actually a phenomenal way of building that logical mind, right? Another one, as cheesy as that sound, is like doing simple like mathematical problems, like actually working on like your multiplication table, your addition, subtraction. It's kind of funny, but like where I'm from, at like the age when you are learning that stuff, they actually like use a stick. So like it's that detrimental of a knowledge to know, and it makes sense to place such heavy emphasis on it, because if you're thinking about it, when you realize that the world is literally zeros and ones, like this is fucking reality, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. My face is literally zero and ones. If you fundamentally understand that, you'll realize how powerful and important it is to actually get down those fundamental operations of reality, like addition, adding numbers, subtracting numbers, dividing numbers, multiplying numbers, learning how to make algebraic equations, like simple things, like essentially solving for x, things like that. And once you actually have that base down, higher level classes, like higher level math, like calculus and calculus or geometry, become a piece of cake, because they're all just built on all the things that I just mentioned, except now they add diagrams, they add funny symbols, but those symbols is just an abbreviation of saying add all the numbers, or add everything from this area to this area. For an integral or derivatives, like do this type of breaking down of the number for derivatives, right? So everything stems from those fundamental operations. And the better you actually have a grasp on it, the more sharp, not only with the skill of reality manipulation you'll be, but the better your mind will be able to logically see where it fits. Like, once you understand that, and then like maybe even take like a physics class, and or you learn about physics and how like speed and time and how it works with distance, you're able to actually, like, as you're going through the supermarket, someone will be coming, and you'll be like, they're coming at this speed. If I veer this way, then most likely they'll keep continuing. But are they looking? They're not looking. So if I veer this way, they might still, and it looks like they're turning even. So what options do I have? I have this way. I have just sliding out. I have yelling at them. Like it actually showed, like you start being math without realizing it. And to do that, you actually have to logically think about it. And by doing that, it's almost like your mind quickly analyzes all the possible options you have in every single scenario, right? And that's essentially logical thinking, like figuring out what are your options, what is possible, right? And then that's before now adding the creative mind. It's like, how can I steeze this? So that's the logical mind. And that's how you essentially develop that. So I mentioned reading, I mentioned working on your math skills. Another one is, funny enough, just always trying to see everything as a story. Like being able to actually follow the story moment to moment to moment. because it'll build on the logical succession of things, like being able to see, okay, the person said, okay, someone started walking, then they met a house, then they walk into the house, and then they ate food, etc. And you're like, how did they find the house? Oh, they were walking. How did they get in the door? Oh, it was a house, etc. Like you'll following things as it occurs will essentially train you to always logically see how this thing could occur. And it's kind of funny because that's a great way of developing wisdom, right? Which is being able to see the cause and the causal relationships of your actions. And that actually ties into fucking Buddhism and like their idea of karma, right? You plant a good seed and propelled by a virtuous state of mind ripens when it meets conditions for it to ripen that come about or bloom into experiences that you know as happiness. Or you plant a negative seed propelled by a negative state of mind that upon meeting circumstances that cause it to ripen, bloom into the experiences that you know as suffering, right? And it's kind of funny, but the more you develop that logical state of mind, the more you develop that being able to follow moment to moment, not just physically, but also mentally, because what you think also has an effect on reality. The moment you become aware of those processes and actively manage them, you'll fucking be like, holy shit, this world, what is life? What is reality? It can almost make it crazy. But it's a great way of cultivating wisdom because it will show you that, oh, I took this action and this occurred. So I know logically that because I do not want that to occur, I shall not make this decision or action again. And then you make wiser choices and you live a better life by that virtue. So that's how you cultivate both minds, right? And then once that happens, you're able to literally live in a different way. Because as you cultivate these two through their own activities that essentially call upon their one or the other mind more than the other, it actually builds you up as a whole. It's kind of like whenever I do one-legged squats in the gym. I do squats, but I also do one-legged squats because I know that if I can make both of my legs really fucking strong individually, when they come together, they will be invincible, unstoppable, impregnable, undefeatable. And it's the same approach that you can use to your fucking brain and mind and the two hemispheres that comprise your brain. So always remember, the game changer lies in synergy. It lies in the unity of both parts. And because you have a soul, because you have a heart, that's when all the cool shit happens. Because these parts, those two will come together and empower your soul, empower your mind, the higher level spiritual operator, to essentially do what will wants to do what soul wants to do. And at that moment, the world is never the same. Never the same. Anyways, hope you guys get something out of this. As always, swag the fuck out.